decided I'm gonna can some potatoes. I normally don't can potatoes because they're pretty cheap and you can get them at the grocery stores pretty easily. But I decided that I'm gonna go ahead and can some for this winter because I have elderly parents I take care of and I want to stay out of the stores. That's what it comes down to. I don't want to go to the store if I don't have to. So I'm gonna go ahead and can up some Yukon Gold with some garlic. And having these on the shelves is going to make it really convenient for me whenever I want to make mashed potatoes, garlic potatoes, stews, soups, anything along those lines, or even fried potatoes. But I do make my parents' meals, and so it makes it convenient to just be able to dump it into their little meals or whatever I need to do with it. So come along with me and let's go can some potatoes. So we'll have some on the shelf for winter and no going to the store. I got my greens in the garden all winter long, and I've got my canned meats, I've got my canned vegetables, and now I have some canned potatoes. So let's go. So for this recipe, I'm going to use a clove of garlic in every pint. You're going to need some salt. Use kosher salt, or you can use canning salt. And I have about 18 pounds of gold potatoes. I like the gold because they're a little more buttery than the russets, but that's what I'm going to use. I got them all sliced and diced, and they're sitting in cold water, and they're ready to go. I've got a pot of boiling water on the stove. I'm going to use this to blanch my potatoes. I also have a pot of boiling water that I'm going to use in the jars for canning the potatoes. And I have my canner. I'm going to put it on the stove as soon as I'm done doing this because there's not enough room on the stove for all 3 pots. So let's get started. So I put 8 jars in my hot water that I'm using for canning. These are clean jars. And I have my lids in a pan getting hot too. They're ready to go. So I've got half the potatoes in the pan. I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And I'm going to let it boil for 2 minutes, and this will help get more of the starch out. But basically we're just blanching it and heating it through so it doesn't float in jars. You don't want it to float. But you can do it, without blanching, but this helps to get some of the starch out, and that's ideal. So while my potatoes are boiling, I've taken my pint jars and I put in a half a teaspoon of salt and 1 to 2 cloves of garlic, depending on what size the cloves are. This is not required. You do not have to put salt or garlic in your jars according to the Ball Canning book. But I like it because it gives a better flavor. I love garlic potatoes. Oop, our potatoes are ready. Let's get them out and get them going in the jars. Alright, they've boiled for 2 minutes. They're all ready to go. Go ahead and pull these all out, so I can get the next batch in the boiling water. Whew, these are hot. I'm not a big potato fan, but I don't feed just me. I feed other members of the family, so I want to make sure and have these on the shelf this winter. But I do like potatoes once in a while. I eat some pork and sauerkraut or fried potatoes for breakfast or something. I like to have these nice and convenient, so I'm not having to run to the store or get a bag of potatoes and only use a couple potatoes and have the rest of the bag go rotten. So I'm going to get these out and put the next batch in. Be right back. So now I'm filling up my jars with the potatoes that have been blanched for 2 minutes. And you're going to make sure you have a 1-inch headspace. So I'll start with doing 2 of these. Now I'm going to put some fresh boiling water on my potatoes. You don't want to use the same water that you boiled them in because it's full of starch. So we're going to fill this up like this. And now I'm going to debubble. I like my chopstick. It goes down and down there real well. Then once you debubble, you want to turn around and put more water in there if necessary. You still have your 1-inch headspace. So I'm going to add a little extra water. There we go. Now you're going to want to take a towel, or I use a paper towel dipped in vinegar, and you're going to wipe your rim really well. Make sure nothing's on there. Check one more time for chips. And you're going to take your lid that's in the warm water. Go, put it on there. Screw on your rings, fingertip tight, not too tight because you want to make sure that air can escape during the processing time. Just like that. And you're going to go ahead and put it in the canner. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up the canner and then we'll get started processing. So my first row held 9 jars. I'm going to go ahead and put my plate in. And I'm going to stack 9 more jars in there. So I'm going to be able to get 18 jars in one batch. Alright, my 18 pints are in the canner. I'm going to put the lid on, lock it down, and I'm going to vent it for 10 minutes. Okay, well it's starting to vent. It's got a couple more minutes. You see how it's kind of spurting a little bit here and there? You want it to be a nice steady stream coming out of there. With my extra potatoes, I had a lot of potatoes. I went ahead and got the second canner out, and I've got 6 quarts in this canner ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to start it up, and I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to let it vent for 10 minutes, and then we will bring it up to pressure and can this too. Alright, it's vented for 10 minutes. Put the weight on. Bring it up to 12 pounds of pressure. Once this has come up to pressure, I'm going to can my pints for 35 minutes, my quarts for 40 minutes. So this one will be 35. When this one's done venting and up to pressure, I will do it for 40 because it has the quarts. Alright, so my canner with the pints in it has come up to pressure to 12 pounds. I set the timer for 35 minutes. We're going to let this go for 35 minutes. My other one has vented, and I put the weight on, and I'm going to bring this up to pressure, and it's going to go for 40 minutes. Okay, our 35 minutes are up on my pints. I'm going to turn it off and let it come down to pressure completely. You know it's down to pressure when this little button right here goes down. So it's going to take probably a good hour before it cools down. The other one's going, and it'll be done soon. Alright, the pints have come down to pressure. As you can see, the button's down. So what I'm going to do is take this and I'm going to crack it. And it's going to be really hot. So I'm just going to let it sit there and vent for 5 minutes. Our other one's almost down to 0. You can see the button's still up, so there's still pressure in there. But this one's all done. I'm going to open it up here in about 5 minutes and take the jars out. Alright, so they've sat for 5 minutes. I'm going to start pulling these out. You can see what they look like. They're still boiling. Still really hot. They're nice and golden because I've got the Yukon potatoes instead of the white potatoes. But that is what they're going to look like. You can see I got my little piece of garlic in there. It's going to be amazing! Alright, all 16 pints are out of the canner. My quarts are still cooling down. They're still in the canner. But you can see how amazing they look. I'm going to let these sit for 24 hours. Do not touch them for 24 hours. Then you take the rings off. You wash the outside of the jars. And you leave the rings off for storage. So if they do fail, you want them to pop off. Oop, there's one kicking. They're all starting to seal. So yeah, if you have a lid failure, you want to make sure that it doesn't reseal. If you put the rings back on, it will reseal and you will not know, and you will get very, very sick. So always leave the rings off so that if you have a lid failure and it loses its seal, it will come off. and you know it is bad and you will have to throw it away. But there we go. Thanks for coming along. I've got potatoes on the shelf for winter and I'm not going to be going to the grocery store. Woohoo! And my 6 pints I just took out of the canner. Don't they look amazing? I can't wait to have these over winter. Probably going to can a little more potatoes, but at least that way I won't have to go to the store when I'm trying to avoid this grocery store over winter. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video and canning potatoes. I hope you put some on your shelf for this winter, and that way you won't have to go to the store. You don't have to worry about them going rotten in the bag. They go rotten pretty easily. So make sure you like, subscribe, and share down below. We've got a lot more videos to go. All right, happy canning!